Well, the Hawaiian Warrior, welcome to Monsoon Live. Thank you for joining us today.
Aloha.
Want to ask, what got you into pro wrestling?
I would say the typical answer that everybody else has. I watched it as a kid. The story that my mom tells me is that my dad put me in front of the TV when I was 3, and half hour into wrestling, I was like beating up pillows already, and I just never grew up, I guess. So that's how I started watching wrestling. Just never, like I said, I just never grew up.
Who have you worked for or currently working for?
I wrestled for 302 in Delaware, WDWA. I'm their heavyweight champion. That's in West Virginia. And PPW in Hazleton, and then there's a bunch of other companies that I wrestled for here and there, but that is the main 3 that I'm on the set roster for.
Now, you were talking about your family. Were they supportive when you told them you were going to go into pro wrestling?
No. My mom, she was not supportive whatsoever about it. She actually, like, when I told her that I wanted to be a wrestler, growing up, it was like, okay, he's a kid, he doesn't know what he wants to do yet, it's probably just a pipe dream, a little kid dream. But then as I was getting older, I'm like, no, I still want to wrestle. And then when it was about time that I wanted to start training, and I'm like, no, Mom, I really want to do this. And she's like, you're going to waste your life. She's like, this would be a horrible decision, blah, blah, blah. And she just kind of shot it down from like every angle. And obviously I didn't listen. My dad really didn't say anything about it, so he wasn't very supportive of it either. He probably thought the same thing, like it was just a pipe dream. But yeah, that was really it. Didn't get the support that I was looking for.
Is there a wrestler you try to emulate?
I kind of take, I kind of watch certain wrestlers, and growing up, it was always Shawn Michaels was my biggest influence. But then, like, as I became a pro, I was watching more old school stuff, and Ricky Steamboat was somebody that a lot of people were telling me that I show characteristics of as in my wrestling style. So then I started watching more Steamboat tapes to kind of learn, like, all right, well, maybe, since I kind of look like him already, like, maybe I can emulate him a little bit. So I would say most of my, how I walk in the ring or how I perform certain moves, I would say is a direct copy of Ricky Steamboat, especially my arm drags. I spent about, I want to say like 45 minutes to an hour, like just arm dragging nobody. I would get in the ring and I just do the motion of the arm drag until someone said, like, yeah, that looks like his, and then I added somebody in it, and then I've been doing it that way ever since.
Now, how did you come up with your character, the Hawaiian Warrior?
Well, it actually started with my heel character that I came up with. I had torn my ACL and I was out for almost a year. And in that time, I'm like, I want to come back like a completely new person. I wanted to come up with this character that no one had ever seen before. So my headpiece, my helmet, was the first thing I'd come up with this idea to wear that, and my idea was to become a king character because the original king of Hawaii, which is King Kamehameha, he is like a god in Hawaii. They have schools named after him. They have festivals and holidays and all this other stuff. Like, he is like a god in Hawaii. And when I was like learning about King Kamehameha, I ended up finding out that in order to win one of the wars that they were about to go battle in, because he was the one that actually united the Hawaiian Islands together. But in one of the battles that he was about to go in, he took his children, walked them to the top of a volcano, and threw them in the volcano and sacrificed them to the gods in order to win this battle. And I'm like, that's heel. Like, that's bad guy stuff. You just killed your kids to win a war. Like, that's awful. And so then I'm like, all right, well, if this guy is willing to kill his own kids in order to win a battle, then, like, imagine using that for wrestling. So then I use a lot of King Kamehameha stories in direction of that for my king character, my heel character, which is the Warrior King Kekoa. So then once I created this king character and I came back from my injury, that was what I started with. But just a lot of companies that I've been established at, they've know that I've been babyface there for a while, so they just never, wanted to have me transition into a heel character. Like, some companies had me heel, but most of them still wanted me to be a good guy because they felt that they needed me more as a good guy than a bad guy. So once I created that character and I was still doing the Flying Hawaiian, which was my babyface character, I was like, the Flying Hawaiian is too generic, and I needed to evolve him. And I had this headpiece that's just sitting there because I paid all this money for it to be a heel, and no one's booking me as a heel. So I'm like, well, this thing needs to get used. So I just, started incorporating that, and then because it's a war helmet. So I'm like, well, then I'm just going to call myself the Hawaiian Warrior and just base it off of this character's only knows war. He was bred for war. He's ready to battle and just go from there. And as soon as that bell rings, he just wants to win. He's out for blood. And that's how I came up with that.
Cool. What finishers do you like to use?
What characters do I like to use?
What finishers? Your finishing move.
What finishers do I like to use? I mean, it really all depends. It's not like there's one move that I'm like, oh, I love to hit this move more than anything. If anything, if I had to pick one, I would say it's a super kick. And the only reason I say that is because I feel very confident that I can always perform a very good super kick. Whereas as much as the rest of the wrestling world is now doing it as if it's just another punch, I like to use that move as, like, one of my main moves. Like, that's definitely going to be it, because like you see, like I said, everybody's starting to use it, and the move itself is starting to just, kind of diminish in its own way, and I don't want that to happen, because especially, like I said, I grew up watching Shawn Michaels, so, I don't want that move to go away and lose its, credit, I should say. So when I do it, I make sure that it's one of the biggest moves that I use.
Okay. What advice do you give to folks who want to get into pro wrestling?
Anybody that asks me about training, I tell them that if you have the slightest bit of doubt, or if you have the slightest bit of, I don't want to say confusion, but and I don't want to reuse doubt. If you don't have it in your heart and you don't have it in your mind more than 110% that this is exactly what you want to do, if you don't have that 110% confirmation with yourself, then don't do it. Because if there's even a little bit of doubt, a little bit of concern or anything that's kind of keeping you away from doing something like this, then you're already in a losing battle. If this is not something that you're going to put everything, and I mean absolutely everything that you have, and sacrifice friends, loved ones, family, everything for in order to do this, if you're not willing to do that, then this is not the business for you.
Now, we've had some folks on the show, they've always asked me to ask this question. Over the years, the indie shows have gone from the family-friendly to more crazier. What's your take on it? Because I know you work with different organizations, some that may be crazier or more family-friendly. Where do you see the indie business going?
I definitely see the indie business just overall just having its different attractions, we'll say. like CZW is always going to be CZW, and then 302 is always going to be, you know, more directed towards the family-oriented groups. I don't think the indie companies in general are all going to go in kind of one direction. I think that everybody's going to find their flavor and just kind of stick with it. So I think with the way that it is now, I think it's probably just going to stick that way. But I mean, who knows?
What current titles do you currently hold right now?
The only title I hold right now is the WDWA heavyweight title. But I'm in the hunt for the 302 title. I almost won it last night, but that didn't happen.
With folks in our area, is there any upcoming shows they can see you maybe after the holidays, say in January, that they can catch you at?
What area are we speaking of?
Pretty much anywhere between where you are in Pennsylvania down south.
Beginning of January, I'll be in Felton, Delaware for 302. Then the second Saturday, I'll be in West Virginia for WDWA. I think it's Silver Springs, West Virginia. And then the third Saturday, I'll be in Hazleton, Pennsylvania for PBW Wrestling in Hazleton. Yeah, so that's where you'll catch me.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time. I know you've been real busy, and we're grateful that you could take the time to be with us on the show. Any last things you want to say to your fans out there?
Just thank you for supporting me, because I'm always the same. I always say the same thing every time. You never know when you're going to have your last moments on this earth, so always be appreciative of what you have. So I appreciate everybody that's been supporting me, anybody that's ever come to a show, asked for an autograph, bought merchandise, absolutely anything, even if you just shared one of my videos just to get my name out there more. Greatly appreciate it. Keep following me, and I'll keep doing my best.
All right. Thanks, man. You have a great night, and we'll look forward to hearing more about you in the coming months.
Aloha.